My boss is an absolute dipshit. Sorry, I hate to be so blunt, but that's just the way it is. My name is Susan Collins, and I work as a personal assistant for a private law firm. It's probably safer for you if I don't mention where. Anyway, back to my arsehole sleazebag of a boss. He's a short, fat little man who walks around the office like a total big shot. Rolex watch, Armani suit, you get the picture. He's also got one of those ridiculous mustaches that looks like a gerbil sleeps on your upper lip. He's a completely sexist pig and treats me like garbage. To give you an example, the other day he walked past my desk and pretended to trip, spilling a giant glass of water over my white blouse, making my shirt see-through. It was so embarrassing. I would have left ages ago if I didn't need the money so much. Simon Jones is his name. He orders me around like a dog with no respect or praise at all. But back to the point. The other day, after his usual rounds of berating everyone in the office, he headed back to his private lift to whisk him away to the safety of his ridiculously large office. Yet, when he pressed the button, a screeching noise of metal on metal filled the room, and smoke billowed through the closed doors of the elevator. It was broken. Which, as you can imagine, made for a pleasant morning for the rest of us. Not. He stormed into my cubicle, his stash twitching furiously. I don't care how you get it done or how much it costs, but if that elevator isn't fixed overnight, it's coming out of your pay. He leaned closer. Slut, he whispered. I lowered my gaze, my face burning ferociously. Yes, sir, I mumbled. Unfortunately, this would mean that I would have to spend the rest of the day searching for a repairman. After 2 hours of searching, I had made no progress and realized I was screwed. When everyone had left the office and it turned to 9 p.m., my fingers scrolled down the webpage further and further, but I thought it was pointless. What sort of mechanic is open past 9? My heart fluttered when I saw the next ad. It didn't stand out, and the wording was dull and boring, but there it was. Mr. Mechanic, we fix everything. It also said that they were available whenever needed. I called their number, which was really unusual, 005-555-555. A voice picked up on the other end, male, but no emotion whatsoever. Hello, Miss Collins, it said. Hey, I replied, before getting straight to the point. He was patient, and when I was finished, he said, I will depart shortly. I thanked him and hung up. I didn't realize then that I hadn't mentioned my name yet. He arrived faster than I expected. His gray overalls were matched by his gray cap that both sported the slogan on the website. He was tall and unusually slim, and his eyes were dull and glassy like marbles. I led him to the elevator and told him that I would be catching some sleep in my cubicle. An hour later, I woke at my desk. A pool of dribble formed in my mouth. The office was eerily quiet. I looked up, and the mechanic was staring at me from the door to my cubicle. All finished, he said. Great, you're a lifesaver. What's the charge? I replied. He told me there was no fee, as it was an extremely simple job. I thought he was joking, but then he nodded at me, took off his cap, and left. I locked up and went home and dreamed of men with gray hair and glass eyes. Simon Jones strolled around his office impatiently whilst drinking a glass of bourbon he had poured himself 2 hours earlier. He was waiting for the CEO of a competing company to arrive, so they could attend lunch together and discuss the civility of their situation. In frustration, he threw his glass against the wall and it shattered everywhere. The phone at his desk buzzed and he jogged over to pick it up. "Mr. Jones, the competition has arrived, sir." "Good," was all he said, before slamming down the phone and heading to his elevator. He pressed the button and the doors slid open silently and smoothly. He smiled to himself and adjusted his tie around his bulbous neck. Whoever that dumb assistant of his had hired, they had done a good job. Jones took one step forward, but his foot found no purchase, and he fell, screaming 34 stories down an elevator shaft to his death. After my boss died, his brother took charge. He was a great guy who gave me a promotion and a pay raise, a touch of class. There was an investigation, but when tested following the incident, the elevator functioned perfectly. I was asked to show the police the number and web page of the mechanic I had called, but the page had disappeared. And when I called the number in front of the police, a mechanical voice informed us that the number did not exist. However, one warm evening, I was walking back to my apartment, and a gray van swerved around the corner. The glassy-eyed man was behind the wheel. It may have been my imagination, but he turned quickly to me, doffed his hat, and gave me the briefest of smiles before disappearing around the next corner. I never saw him again, but the words on his van, overalls, hat, and webpage are forever stuck in my head. We fix everything. So, my first thoughts on this pasta are that this really isn't like a traditional creepypasta. You know, I saw some people in the comments saying it was sort of like an homage to ghost stories that you would tell your friends around the campfire as a child. So, I'm not going to judge it based on the creepiness factor because it definitely knows what it wants to be, so I don't think it would be fair to judge it as something it clearly isn't attempting to be. So with that in mind, I honestly really enjoyed this one. I'm really someone who believes strongly in justice, so it was pretty cool to see the pudgy little corporate CEO type get his comeuppance in the end. I also really liked the concept of this Grim Reaper-esque figure who goes around and gives people their just desserts. If I had any nitpicks, one might be the change in tense. In the beginning of the story, she mentions how much she hates her boss, as if he's still around and she still works for him. But then later in the story, she starts using the past tense. But that's just a nitpick. One problem is, I feel like the story should have been expanded more. It's the same problem I addressed with Turnia. Who is this mysterious, gray-haired, glassy-eyed man? Yeah, he's obviously supernatural, but is he sent by God? Or was he sent by the devil? In the story, he avenges the innocent and punishes the corrupt, so he's more likely to be affiliated with the forces of good rather than the forces of darkness. But that still doesn't answer the question. But regardless, I found this to be a very solid pasta, and I hope to see more from the author in the future. I give The Mechanic a 4 out of 5. As always, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, this is Creepy Reviews saying,
Hasta luego.